Hey there, folks, and welcome to episode 49 of the Fundraising Bright Spots podcast. My name's Rob Woods, and this is the show for anyone who works in fundraising and who wants ideas to help you raise more money, enjoy your job, and make a bigger difference, especially during the pandemic. And this time we wanted to make a slightly different episode, and the gist of it is that we've now been running the podcast for just over a year. So towards the end of 2020, I sat down over Zoom with my friend and colleague at Brightspot, Ben Swart, and we looked at particular episodes which we think are especially relevant and useful to fundraisers, given the state of the world right now, given the state of the pandemic and how challenging fundraising can be right now. The first of these episodes we put out as episode 47, and we looked at 5 we think are especially interesting right now. And so this is the second one of these. We've chosen 5 episodes which we hope you'll find particularly interesting. In and of itself, I hope you enjoy listening to this one, and maybe after listening to our discussion you might be moved to go and check out a couple of episodes which you may not have heard before. So that's the idea. I hope you find it helpful. On with the show.
One of the ones I really loved was with someone known to both of us, Ben, Jamal Iqbal. And one reason I love it is because he works in the higher education sector, and I'm conscious that most of the episodes have been skewed to a more conventional kind of charity rather than education, schools and colleges. So that's one reason, because he's talking about storytelling and the importance of seeking more and more conversations with your supporters, your potential supporters, your alumni, in the context of the higher education sector. And the other thing I took from it is I'd forgotten one of Jamal's absolute strengths, and you know this, Ben, because you used to work with him. Mm-hmm. One of his out and out strengths is this. I said, if you could, Jamal, if you could have a billboard with just one word written on it that all fundraisers would see, and he said tenacity.
Yep.
And I'd forgotten that word. I don't use that word very often. I talk about perseverance and determination. But from what I've studied, particular words have a power over us. And just him choosing tenacity as a quality above all, that, a cure-all, basically. You could be weak in some areas, but if as a fundraiser you decide to be tenacious, you're willing to just keep going and bounce back, whatever it takes to find a way to improve results in a certain area, be that being a better listener or having more conversations with your supporters or whatever it might be. If tenacity is a strength, you're going to do well as a fundraiser. And Jamal re-inspired me in the importance of that value, just kind of the way he explained it. And also, I guess I'm biased because he's so congruent, because I've known him for a while, and I know that this is Jamal's trump card.
Absolutely. And do you know what? Today last week I was talking about partnerships that are still going, that 5-6 years ago said to Jamal, no, sorry, we're not going to meet you. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. And they're into their 3rd year now, because Jamal doesn't give up if he knows that if he sees the sense, maybe not now, but later down the line. And because of that, they are still going, and they're winning awards. So yes, I can totally see that. And by the way, congratulations, Jamal, if you are listening to this, because I know that you've had another addition to the Jamal Iqbal family. So congratulations to that. I'm sure it's very early in the night that you're listening. Congratulations,
Jamal and family. Another of my favourites was, again, talk about force of nature. There's a brilliant fundraiser I met this year through the Major Gifts Mastery Programme called Paul Davies, from a relatively small charity. It's an arts charity in Manchester called Manchester Camerata. And he came on Major Gifts Mastery. He was absolutely a sponge for learning. Lots of the breaks he was coming out to ask me another question. And I just so respect that quality in a person, to just be hungry to want to know, and really get the detail of why this, not that. And then he's worked so hard this year to go out and implement for his own practice, and B, help his team with some of the ideas that we teach at Brightspot. And in episode 33, I think it was, Paul is just talking about some just wonderful progress in achieving momentum for major gifts to his orchestra, his arts charity. And just as a headline, in that episode, he talked about how last year, before coming and working with us, he was, he might be able to meet 4 or 5 or talk to 4 or 5 of his supporters per month. And when I interviewed him in June for the podcast, he was averaging 20 Zoom calls with his supporters to talk about that, catch up and or talk about the support, 20 a month. And, just in number terms, that's a good way of understanding his other results, which is that at that time, it was just literally 2 weeks into launching their appeal in June, they'd achieved a third of their target within 2 weeks because of this momentum. You talk to that number of people who might be relatively wealthy and who care about your cause, even if you ignored all of our other content about storytelling and rapport and listening and matching up, you ignored all of that, but you just talked to 20 people who care a month. We have found, you get your results are gonna kind of go relatively well because people do care. And anyway, if you've not heard that one, I really recommend it as a listen because there's something about Paul's energy and his enthusiasm that I find inspiring, and I hope other listeners do too.
That's numbers 23 and 24 to hear how he got those extraordinary results.
By my memory, Ben, it was episode 33.
33, sorry.
Talking about it, but again, I'm going to cheat and add in an extra podcast. One of our favourite themes, always in fundraising, Ben, when we're teaching and coaching people, is we don't take it lightly. We know it's not easy for a human being to do. There's lots of good seeming reasons in your head not to pick up the phone, and I know we're quite proud of some of our sophisticated strategies, but one of the key things we've found that helps a fundraiser in all normal times, let alone pandemic times, is to find the courage to pick up the phone more often and earlier in the day to talk to people who've already are supporting your organization. And, some of, on the episode with Paul, you get some of how he does that. And then, that is a real engine that drove his growth for him and his team. But the other must listen to episode, if I could just mention one that I think, I'm not saying this to puff you up, Ben, but my sense is this episode 19 you recorded with me is the one that has been listened to more than any other episode of all the ones we've made this year. And in it, broadly, you're just helping people find the courage and some technique to be braver in picking up the phone. So thank you for that one. I don't know, there's another dozen stories I could tell right now of the impact that's achieved, but I don't know if you want to kind of just reflect on what it was like to record that or the difference you perceive it's made for fundraisers you coach.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that we had a hypothesis. I remember talking to you, it was day 2 of lockdown, that the things that we were hearing as charities, the stories of how tricky the next few months would be, we have to get this to the ears of our donors. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a conversation and care about them on the phone. And since that point, whether it's, I think you said, Stevie, that podcast was what helped her in her charity. Nearly every fundraiser that I've spoken to, when they have been brave enough to have a conversation, to pick up the phone, like you found with Paul, it has made life easier for them. They have got more gifts in, they have got more meetings, they have been more relieved, they have felt a sense of progress, they have felt more confident. It's been working, and it is a reoccurring theme. When people choose to get on the phone, get smashed through that fear, they are feeling so much better for it. So I'm pleased that podcast worked.
Yeah, and just recently on the Major Gifts Mastery Program, there's a wonderful fundraiser who mentioned that she and her team, in order to get lots of people to attend their virtual event, she didn't just send an email, she didn't just send a film, but she and her team put in the hours, picking up the phone to their supporters, telling them about this exciting, inspiring virtual event. And, surprise, surprise, lots of people have come to the event and they'll get the value from the event. But the other thing she was saying is, as a team, we got so energized by connecting with people who were pleased to hear from us. And that's always the real kind of the bigger value you get from the brave act or the generous act of reaching out, not for money, but just reaching out because you care, is invariably, and you might get one or two kind of less enjoyable calls, but overall, people who make more calls, have more conversations with their supporters, tend to get their morale lifts and their energy levels go up because of that need for human connection is being met. And goodness knows if there's one thing that we're still going to need in 2021, Ben, it's ways of consistently knowing we can lift our morale and help our morale stay high. So that's another reason we love that tactic. And it's not just, because you're worrying about your target and your target, you're more likely to raise more money if you talk to more of your supporters.
And in fact, I've got a text message that someone sent to me that from their supporter that said, hi, fundraiser. Just to say how thoughtful it was to call us yesterday. Much appreciated. Look forward to getting more news on your plans for streaming, taking things online, etc. Take care. And that is from a millionaire who 5 days into lockdown, that's the message she sent after the phone call.
Yeah. And some of the other inspiring ones, I think Stevie mentioned this on the podcast, is when supporters have said, oh, thank you so much for calling. Do you know, you're the first person I've talked to in the last 4 days. Fundraisers I know care about people.
Yeah.
And when you lean into caring about your supporters rather than trying to get something from them, the whole game becomes easier.
Hey, it's Rob, and I just wanted to jump in really quickly to let you know about our most popular training day for fundraising teams, which is called Storytelling and Influence. And the reason we're so excited is that this year we've been discovering it's working as well as ever when delivered over Zoom, just like it did for the years and years that we've delivered it as a classroom training session for fundraising teams. And if you were able to attend our Breakfast Club for Fundraising Leaders just the other day, then you would have heard Max from a homelessness charity talking about how the techniques that his team learned on this course were one of the factors that helped them to win a wonderful partnership worth more than £250,000 literally a couple of months ago. So if you're the leader of a fundraising team and you'd like your colleagues to have extra skill and confidence to be more interesting, more inspiring, more able to help donors connect to what they really care about to do with your cause, when they talk to your supporters or when they're writing to your supporters, then this course we teach, Storytelling and Influence, is the one that gets results. If you're at all curious, you can find out more information on my website, which is brightspotfundraising.co.uk/services, brightspotfundraising.co.uk/services. There's some information there, or if you'd just like to go to the website and get in touch with me to set up a chat, you can do that. And we would love to hear from you. For now though, back to the interview as I talk about 3 more episodes that I think are especially useful for fundraisers to listen to during these challenging times.
One other one I particularly wanted to mention, I think it might have been episode 30 with Lucy Squants, where she's talking about when she at her organisation collaborated with another organisation kind of to do a couple of years ago, the Virgin Money Marathon, and just some interesting lessons she learned about that. And I'm not going to go into detail now. It's only that as charities are having to duck and dive more and pivot, one of the tactics some are needing to do is to work with other organisations more deliberately. On our Breakfast Club last week, the excellent Desiree D'Souza at Seeability was giving her top tips about how, working deliberately with other organisations, consortium working, has really made a difference to how their charity is still able to grow and to serve their beneficiaries. So it's just a clearly an important theme that some charities are going to need to look at. And the last one, in some ways, it is the most important. All 44 of the episodes we've done so far, I believe have their merit. But I don't think anything is as important now for us as well-being and morale, including mental health. And for that reason, I also just really loved the episode that Paul Mackenzie made for us. I can't remember what episode number you might know, but he's, as a leader, he explains, the 5 main priorities he had, certainly through the first part of lockdown, that first lockdown, how tough it was, how not easy, because you've got, dozens of different problems to solve as a leader, but hearing the congruent way in which he prioritized the looking after of his colleagues, and that his number one responsibility as a leader, and the lengths he went in time and energy to do that, and every single management meeting and meeting with his team, he talked about how he was serious about that, and he wanted everyone to be looking after themselves and looking out for each other, so it wasn't just the leader's problem. And then further tactics for achieving that in practice, which is not always easy. I found that a really inspiring listen as well.
Yeah. And Rob, so if you are listening to this, it's numbers 23 and 24. Content so good you had to make 2 of them, Rob.
That's right.
23 and 24, and I couldn't agree more, especially at the moment. A really, really powerful podcast to help people with their well-being. Rob, I mean, one thing for me is that I used to say to people that one of the things about Bright Spot is that you've spent so many years hunting out fundraisers, buying them coffee, and choosing to really dive deeper on what it is that they do. Outstanding fundraisers, Paul with leadership, and the other Paul with major giving, and those interviews would be in your pad and lost. And the thing I love about these podcasts is there are 40 plus interviews now that you've used and we've used to help others to change their habits, to get home on time, be happier, raise more money, and anyone can listen to them. So I'm pleased that you've had a chance to look back, because they really are helpful. Is there anything more that you would like to say to them, Robin, on reflection?
Well, I was just, before we finish, Ben, just going to say, your life, if you were, how can one choose one thing? But as you look back over this extraordinary year, either what's a key lesson you've learned, and or as you look forward to the 2021 that's coming at us, what your thought might be for how you as a fundraiser are planning to quite deliberately go out and make the difference you'd like to?
That's a really good question. I think that one thing for me is the need to care about, I think you touched on it. Paul has realized that he needs to think through 5 things to care about his people more now than ever before. The reason why a fundraiser is getting messages of support and we're getting feedback from donors saying, thank you for calling me, is because we need to care about our donors more than we ever have done before. And we know that our organisations, the moment this happened, are caring about our beneficiaries more than they ever have done before. And I think that guiding principle of when I begin to focus about my people, about my beneficiaries, and about my donors, it's filled me with energy and confidence throughout this, and for other fundraisers too. And so for me, it's that sense of, if I stop and I focus on the fact that my kids are quarantined, or that I'm stuck at home for another few hours, or all these other things, my energy begins to sap. But when I begin to realize and care about others, especially in those 3, my donors, my beneficiaries, and my people, I've found that it's given me energy, and that for me, that's my takeout. As well as the complete opposite of that, making sure that I switch everything off. I've got an 18-month-old, and it's really hard to think about other things when he's there. So for me, if you don't have an 18-month-old, what's the thing that you can do that can switch off everything else? I'm not sure how helpful that is, Rob, but those are my 3 or 4 ideas. I
agree with both points. The finding a way to contribute and care about others energizes, and it helps you feel connected rather than alone and isolated. And secondly, my goodness, we just, whatever one's habit or practice might be in one's life, to just kind of stop the brain whirring. And for some people it's meditating, for some people it's cooking, or whatever it might be. I plan to continue practicing that idea, certainly throughout 2021, to help me be at my best. Ben, thank you so much for playing the role of Parkinson today and having the tables turned on you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much to the listener. If this was your first episode, I hope we whet your appetite and you want to go and listen to a couple more juicy ones. And to our loyal listeners who have been listening to most of the episodes all year long, a huge thank you as well.
So I hope you found my discussion with Ben was interesting. If you'd like to see a full transcript and a summary of the episode, you can do that by going to the blog and podcast section of our website, which is brightspotfundraising.co.uk. And if you'd like to get your hands on some more ideas to help you succeed during the pandemic, then please do check out my ebook, Power Through the Pandemic, which gives 7 strategies to help you raise more money, even now, through major donors, corporates and trusts. You can download it for free from brightspotfundraising.co.uk/power. Before we finish, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who's been sharing the podcast with colleagues in your charities and on social media. And if you want to do that today, or if you want to get in touch, Ben and I would love to hear what you think. We're both on LinkedIn, and on Twitter, Ben is @BenSwart, and I am @Woods_Rob. Thank you so much for listening today. If you found it helpful, do remember to subscribe to the podcast today. And good luck in all your efforts to be bold in your fundraising to make a positive difference.